Bitcoin is the greatest monetary network that the human race has ever developed, and it's certainly the dominant one right now, and it looks like it's going to be continue to be the dominant one for as long as we live. Well, Bitcoin's the best performing asset for the past decade, and it's 100x better than gold, and it's 10x better than equity portfolios. So the volatility is the price you pay for the performance that you get. Currency is 20 pesos to the dollar. I'm like, it's going to collapse to 80 pesos to the dollar. Today it's 150 pesos to the dollar. I said, can we move it to the US? No. I said, can we buy gold with it? No. I said, can we buy something else with it? I don't know. I said, okay, guys, can you just go buy a yacht and sail it to the Caribbean with the money? They looked at me like I was crazy. This is before Bitcoin. Today I would have bought Bitcoin. The Argentines took 90% of everything that everybody owned, every currency and every foreign currency account overnight without due process. And if those 50 million people had Bitcoin, they would have had to arrest all 50 million people, sweat them out for 90 days in a jail cell to squeeze the keys out. So yeah, they could have done it. They would have had to extradite me from the US and haul me down to Argentina and arrest me for 90 days to get the Bitcoin, maybe, and they still might not have got it. This is all really about positioning yourself for the long term and building a property portfolio such that when the property tax comes, you're as protected as you might be. And everybody makes their decisions about what they think their risk is going to be in your political citizenship situation. But we should hope in the free markets, Sven, this will be settled by the free markets with negotiation in the political process. Do you buy Bitcoin? And you can see the problem, of course, is the debt is devaluing rapidly. The land in California can be taxed and is not movable. The building in New York's not going anywhere. It might be valuable to a rich person that lives in New York. What about a rich person that lives in Beijing? Do they want your building in New York? How are you going to hide your building? Well, Bitcoin's the best performing asset for the past decade, and it's 100x better than gold, and it's 10x better than equity portfolios. So the volatility is the price you pay for the performance that you get. And oftentimes the best investment idea isn't the most comfortable investment idea. I think if I told you there's 100% certainty you are going to lose 7% of your money over the course of a year, you might think, well, I have a decade before I lose half of my money. I have time to think about it. That's the status quo when monetary inflation is 7%. If I told you there's 100% probability that you're going to lose 20% of your money over the next year and half of your money over the next 3 years, well, you might think you need to move faster. Well, what if I told you you're going to lose all your money? What if I told you the currency is going to collapse to zero in 3 months, which is kind of what it did in Zimbabwe and Venezuela? Or what if I told you we're going to have 95% inflation? I think the unofficial inflation rate in Argentina is like 85% this year. What if I told you we're going to have hyperinflation? Everything will be twice as expensive next year. Maybe the UK says we're going to tax your Bitcoin 5% a year, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't even run, but there's a guy in China or Russia or Singapore that might like to own your thing, and you can sell it to them, whereas you can't sell them your building and you can't sell your house. And so some property is not fungible and transportable, other property is. And so the whole basis of my view that Bitcoin is digital property and superior property is the fact that it is least likely to be impaired, hardest to tax, easiest to self-custody. You have the strongest property rights. In the near term, heck, I couldn't tell you what happens today, tomorrow, next month, next year. I've just taken a 1 decade long view, and I'm going to wait and let it sort itself out based upon what I know. So Bitcoin's the first thermodynamically sound system. In the developed world, you have banks, and you can move money from point to point for a few dollars. And you have Wall Street, and you can buy assets like the S&P 500 index. if you don't put, if you had $100,000, if you don't put it into the S&P index, you lost purchasing power every year, 7% of it for a decade. What is Bitcoin? Digital property. Bitcoin is the ability to buy $387 worth of property, carry it around on your mobile phone, send it to your grandson or granddaughter. You don't have to keep it in a bank. You don't have to trust a third party. You don't have to trust a CEO. You don't have to trust a company. You don't have to trust a country. It is digital property on an open monetary protocol. No one can screw it up. I have billions of dollars of it. I can't screw it up. I have no control over it. The enemy has no control over it. Your friend has no control over it. So it is the first time in the history of humanity that we have invented digital property. And when you're buying Bitcoin, it's like buying into the digital property network. It's like, so how do I deal with volatility? Well, if you bought Amazon stock at any point in its history, it would have been volatile. It would draw down 80%, 5 times, I think. The only mistake you could ever have made would have been to sell Amazon stock. I think of Bitcoin as like that shining city in cyberspace where billions of people will eventually want to live. Right? Instead of moving from Europe to America or moving from the old world to the new world or whatever, we're moving from the planet to cyberspace. We can't move to outer space yet. I can't get 1 billion people off the planet and settle on a better Earth, but I can move 1 billion people to cyberspace. Bitcoin is property in cyberspace. It's 21 million city blocks in cyber Manhattan. The people that move there first, right, get to buy the land cheapest. And then, how many people will eventually want to live there? Well, unlike Manhattan, where there's a limit, there's really no limit. Why wouldn't everybody want to live there, right? I mean, I don't know that there won't be other cities in cyberspace that might meet other needs. I mean, I suppose if the Chinese, made it illegal to own Bitcoin, but there was a Chinese Bitcoin, there might be a Chinese version of Bitcoin in cyberspace, kind of like Alibaba, and Ant and WeChat kind of branched off from Facebook and Google and Amazon. So there might be some other digital dominant monetary networks, but Bitcoin is the greatest monetary network that the human race has ever developed, and it's certainly the dominant one right now, and it looks like it's going to be continue to be the dominant one for as long as we live.